Best and worst trips from the Preakness Stakes here, and that's a great segue here from Rodney in the chat. Wants to talk about Secret Oath, and if she had a better break, maybe she would have won. Rodney, I'm gonna pull this down, and I'm gonna bring this back here. Start the video over again for us.
Well,
she's the 4 horse. Go ahead, Mike.
Let's start with where credit is due, right? Let's talk about the ride that Jose Ortiz gave the 5 horse, which I thought was actually really, really wonderful here. A lot of we're going to talk a lot of crap about specifically the ride on the 8, and the 4 got some tough luck here. But watch what Jose Ortiz does. He pulls his horse out toward the off the rail, because what he doesn't want to do, he doesn't want to be on the rail. He doesn't want to be inside speed, and he knows the 7 is going. So what he does by pulling off the rail and then allowing the 7 to clear means that he guaranteed himself that 2 spot. Very, very smart, heady ride, understanding what the other horses around you want to do, how you want to set it up, and the fact that then they get a absolute perfect setup here where you have cheap speed in front, you have a target for early voting. He's the one who's actually setting the pace behind everybody else and really gets to decide when to push the button to go. Never stuck on the rail, always in the clear, always comfortable. I mean, it was a absolute masterclass by Jose Ortiz coming out of that gate. And people are like, well, he spun wide to screw Epicenter over. No, he spun wide because that's the correct thing to do coming out of the gate. There's no real speed inside from you as a threat. You know the speed's coming from the outside. And you know what? If there was inside speed, he would have just had a horse to his inside and sat in 3rd instead of 2nd. It wouldn't really have affected him very much. So wonderful ride by Jose Ortiz. And then right here, he says, okay, now I'm going to go. I'm going to make my move, take over the lead, and you come and get me. And that's exactly what he forced everyone else to do. He kept himself out of trouble. He put himself in the perfect spot. He allowed the speed to clear, and then he just set it up for a perfect ride home. I mean, it was an absolutely spectacular ride by Jose Ortiz. I don't want to take anything away from that. Yeah, he tripped out, but he tripped out because of how he played that early portion of that race to allow him to get into the position that he wanted to. And that's the exact opposite of what a couple other riders did in here. And that's why I want to point that out first, because that was exactly what he needed to do for early voting to be able to get the perfect trip and the win.
Yeah, I'm glad that we did focus here on early voting. Credit where credit is due. The best ride from Jose Ortiz since Piazza Bianca in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch his ride on her master ride there. I mean, but we talk about Irad, gets the headlines as the Eclipse Award winner the last, 3-4 years. Flavien Prat getting a lot of the headlines, Joel Rosario getting the headlines. Jose Ortiz likes to remind you, hey, I'm still really damn good, too. And you're right, Mike, just an absolute masterclass ride. I do want to touch on one thing here. I'm not going to single out Dr. Tang specifically, but it's kind of natural when the Ortiz brothers are involved in a race and one sets the pace and the other one wins, or people kind of think something funky happens. I'm going to say that there was no sort of shenanigans here, Mike, because Irad Ortiz Jr. on the 7 Armagnac did exactly what that horse's only chance to win was, which was go to the lead and try to go gate to wire, right? Like, we knew he's cheap speed, and if he can get out to the lead and get an early, advantage like he did, maybe he can hold on. Clearly he didn't, but your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, Armagnac did what Armagnac does. He went to the lead, like you said. And I wouldn't be shocked if Jose was like, hey, Irad, you going? And Irad's like, yeah, I'm going, right? Like, I wouldn't be shocked if that happened. But
who's surprised that the 7 went and that the 5, they sat exactly where you would have plotted them out. The only one that wasn't in the mix was the 3 because he didn't belong in the first place.
Exactly. And that's that. Excuse me. And that's exactly what you saw. I mean, it was, hey, look, I'm going to save my position. I'm going to stay out wide. I'm going to let Armagnac go by me. And I know he's going to go by me. And I'm going to then stalk and pounce. And Chad Brown talked about this after the race. The 2 workouts coming into the Preakness, both of them, they set a target for early voting. They understood what they were going to face in the Preakness and how they wanted to set up. And yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that this is Irad and Jose, because that's why you get some of these allegations. And it's also because of the way that Jose rode. Jose rode and pushed the horse out, but he pushed the horse out because it was a smart thing to do. And the 8 had some trouble. Epicenter had some trouble, but that was because of what Joel Rosario did, not because of what Jose and Irad did. And in this case, Irad's only chance was to go to the lead and try and wire the field. He gave Armagnac every shot he could. I mean, I felt like, they went 47 and change, high 47s. That was the only way Armagnac was getting any piece of this. So I thought that ride on the 7 was good. I thought the ride on the 5 was wonderful. And it really kind of just set up perfectly for the 5, considering some of the decisions that were made by the rest of the riders and some of the trouble that Secret Oath had. Because I don't want to pile on Luis Saez, because I think he had legitimate trouble, whereas Rosario created his own trouble.
We'll get to him in a second. One horse I want to single out here just because he is towards the front there, the red cap with the white star. That's the gray horse, Creative Minister. Mike, I thought a good trip from the was it Hernandez? It was on I can't remember who was right. Yeah, it was Brian Hernandez. Rode him very well, and this is a horse that only debuted a few months ago. Got a win, got another win, and then suddenly is here in the Preakness Stakes. Got the good trip, and if you like this horse projecting forward over the summer, I mean, you see a very nice third there after a very good trip from the two post. I'm sorry, a really great effort there from the two Creative Minister.
Yeah, I thought Creative Minister looked good. Got bounced a little in here. I mean, you see him trying to come out a little bit, and he gets banged up, and there's a little trouble inside those first four horses on the inside there that you kind of see them all bump a little bit, and then Creative Minister gets pinched a little here, and then he's down on the rail, which I don't think is the best place to be on this track, but I thought he ran a hell of a race. I was impressed by it. I mean, I thought that he could come up and pick up the pieces, but the race he actually ran, I thought was even better than what I expected. So,
I mean,
we'll
here
see.
He's inside of horses, and he's taking dirt, and these are experienced stakes horses, stakes winners ahead of him that are doing this. This is not an easy spot for a horse to be buried 3 deep like that and still come out when he's asked to make the move and press when he's pressing go in the turn.
Yeah, and so I think he was good. I mean, I don't love that we're with McPeak. I think that makes it you don't really know what's going to happen with this horse, where we're going to go, what we're going to do, if it's going to be turf, dirt, Dubai, who knows next. But I thought he ran a big race. I like this middle move he made right here. And he kind of led the way for Epicenter in a lot of ways up the rail, which is another reason why Epicenter was wildly fortunate here before Epicenter kind of was able to slip inside. And he got in a little trouble here. I mean, this spot right here is tough for a horse that has only won once. He's not sure if he's going to be able to go inside of Armagnac, if he's got to go out wide. He had the one horse there who was kind of fending him in a little bit. So then he's able to tilt wide and go around Armagnac. And it was just, it wasn't the best spot in the world. And like Rosario came back and talked about how he had traffic trouble and he didn't get the horse running as early as he wanted to. Well, it's the same thing with Creative Minister. I don't think he got to send as soon as he wanted to, or start his kick as soon as he wanted to. And so he probably could have ended up a little bit closer had he a little less traffic trouble around that second turn.
Yeah, for whatever we say here, early voting was winning this race. Aside from Epicenter, well, no horse was beating early voting here. I mean, Creative Minister, solid effort, but you're right. Instead of being 5 lengths behind, maybe he was within 3 lengths or something there. All right, do you want to talk about Epicenter? Is there anybody else inside of there? Oh, you know what? Let's talk about Secret Oath real quick, just because she did get pinched back hard in the first turn, thrown off her running style. So just watch this. She's right there in the middle with the blue and the neon yellow silks. She's going to get pinched right here. Yep. And that forced her way back and forced Sayas to have to rally her from last, which, again, she wasn't, fast forward it here, and she's going to make her move, but I think she just was too far back, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she was too far back. I think that she used too much energy when she was that far back as part of the problem, right? And we've seen her do this too. Look, like she is used to being that far back. It's the fact that the pace wasn't that fast. She was that far back, and she also had trouble early, so that she had to stop her momentum, restart her momentum, go back through that process, and then try and make this sustained wide move. And we saw her do the same thing in the Arkansas Derby, where she made this sustained wide move and just flattened out. And that's exactly what happened here, where she just kind of flattened out, and it just proved to be the 4th best horse in this spot. And honestly, I think she's probably the 4th best horse in this race. I mean, I think that's where she fell in. I think before the race, in my mind, she was the 3rd, and after, she's the 4th, right? Like, I think the Creative Minister showed me enough for me to believe that he's a little better than she is long term. And look, it's not taking anything away from Secret Oath. She's a phenomenal filly. She's going to be awesome this summer at Saratoga. Can't wait to see her up there in person. Just tough, man. And this is one of those spots where the 5 got out, the 7 got out. Everyone else got themselves in trouble because no one else decided to send at all or push the pace, and that really hurt the 4 horse who didn't want to be out there. But because of the lackluster effort from a couple of the other horses on the inside, you just saw, the 5 goes, and then the 6 through the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 just bounce the crap out of each other right here, where they just start banging around, and the 4 gets pinched.
It's all Happy Jack's fault.
But the 2 gets pinched, and Happy Jack comes in and then comes out, and it's an absolute mess. And then Ortiz hits the brakes. And when Ortiz hits the brakes, it slows everyone back up again. And it's just, It's tough, man. It's why it's so important to ride for position. All right, let's
Oh
wheel it
man.
back. Let's watch the start for Epicenter.
Saez was already pulling the goggles off going into the first turn on Secret Oath. That first set came down. Real quick before we do simplification, Rodney wants. Oh, where is it? Rodney wants to know what the F happened to simplification. Simplification bled because they weren't on Lasix, and yeah, it really sucks. Sounds like he's gonna be okay coming out of it, but he did bleed. And I agree, Curtis. The no Lasix rules, they're really stupid. At this point, like, why are we ruining simplification? He's had such a good campaign, and he bleeds once, and hopefully it doesn't ruin him, but hopefully comes out of it well. But we're going to forgive simplification and hope he comes out of it. Mike, who do you want to look at? Epicenter?
Yeah, let's focus on Epicenter here. And the key is watch the break and then count to 5-1,000 and note where they are in this race.
All right.
He still has the chance to send at that point.
Ready? 3, 2, 1. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7. Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
His trouble literally comes 12 seconds into this race. So everyone who is saying, "Oh no, he had no choice, he got pinched," 12 seconds into the race was the first time that Epicenter had any trouble, and he had trouble because he was slower than Skippy Longstocking. Let that sink in. The first 12 seconds of this race, he was slower than Skippy Longstocking, and that's why he had issue, and his rider did not ask him for anything. It wasn't one of these things where he got broke and then pinched and then got in trouble, and then it made sense that he had this ride. No, this was a lack of effort early on Joel Rosario's part to not position the horse, and that is what cost him the race. Plain and simple. I mean, to then go back and watch the rest of this race where it's like, oh, but he saved ground. Whoop-de-frickin-do. He only was one path inside of what early voting did the entire frickin' way around, and he had trouble throughout the rest of the race because he was on the inside. He caught kickback because he was inside. The pace wasn't fast. He had to close into a slow pace. He wasn't able to send the horse as soon as he wanted to because he was on the inside, and he never got the horse loose. And Joel Rosario admitted, he said, I shouldn't have been on the inside. Asmussen was fired up after the race. He said he never should have been this far off. I had never seen Asmussen be that upset with a rider. And even now, look, he's asking him, but he's got nowhere to go. He's got a horse
banging
race
his Skippy damn
outside.
Longstocking.
It's just like he got nothing. And then you like, okay, well, now maybe he can go to the inside here. But you don't want to be running up the rail with a horse that's trying to close. That's never come from this far off the pace except for the Derby. But he made his move in the turn on the Derby. He wasn't in second at this point. He was in the lead at this point. I mean, just the number of mistakes Rosario made in this race, all compounded because he did not send the horse and decided to try and rate this horse, which is what he decided to do. Don't get me wrong. He had 12 seconds to get that horse forward. When I told you can count to 5-1,000 and see where he is, nothing had changed in the race. At any point in here, he's just like, I'm just going to stay on the seven's hip, on the seven's butt. You're fine. I'm going to stay on the nine's hip. You're fine. I'm going to get in front of the six. You're fine. We're still fine. Now we're in trouble. It takes that long for him to actually have trouble. The
nine's not even being pushed.
No.
Like, you should be, like, if you see the nine's there, like, and then your seven's going, like, hey, you should get going so that the nine gets behind you. Oh.
And the only reason the nine comes in is because Rosario goes in. If Rosario just stays in a straight path, the nine stays in a straight path. But as soon as Rosario starts going in, you see the nine just fading in with him. And that is the reason that this problem was caused by Rosario. And like, look, if this was a 2-turn turf race, this ride is fine. Okay?
Yeah. He and Secret Oath are flying, man.
if you're on a closer in a 2-turn turf race in New York, great ride, Rosario. Wonderful, right? And this is my biggest issue with Rosario. It's why he's like borderline top 5 for me, which is wild. So people are like, he's the best jockey in the world. He is borderline top 5. And it's because he's great on speed. He's great on closers. He's terrible when he has to make decisions in race in these type of spots, especially on dirt, because he makes bad decisions so often, and you end up with these rides where you're choking the shit out of major horses. He probably now has the worst 2 rides in the Triple Crown in the last decade. When you have Rock Your World and you have Epicenter here. And
Rock Your World's not his fault.
Ride,
his feet weren't in the stirrups. There was an issue in the starting gate.
Put your feet in the frickin' stirrups, man. It's the Kentucky Derby. Like, why was everyone else fine? Why? We've had 147 Kentucky Derbies. Let's say there's 10 horses per race. That's 1,470 horses. And one time, feet have been out of the stirrups. Okay? Like, one time. Anyway, to me, it's just like, look, this was awful. And it's frustrating because This is just like, he was amazing in the Derby. He gave him a perfect ride in the Kentucky Derby, and then he completely botched the Preakness. And it's why we joke about him being called the bell curve, because you see this like really like all amazing, wonderful effort rides, literally like talent wise, decision wise, the best ride you'll see in the world. And then the next race, it's one of the worst rides you'll see from like a Fawner Park jockey. It is ridiculous how wide of an expectation level you have to set for yourself when you're betting Joel Rosario. And this race is a perfect example of it. He blew this race, period.